Hello, hello, welcome in. There's three of us here today to share some wisdom coming through around the ancestors. And so I'd just like to start off by digging this gorgeous heart Tibetan bowl so that we can connect in with our hearts and one another. So just feeling the ground beneath your feet, closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in and soak up this sound into your hearts. And feeling yourself settling into the ground beneath your feet or beneath your thighs and your buttocks or your back if you're lying down. Feeling that connection with the Great Mother beneath us. Connecting in with her heart. Connecting her heart to your heart. And to all of us here on the call and tuning in whenever you do, all connected in the heart field. And knowing that we stand on the great grandmother Earth, who also held our ancestors when they were in physical form. And we call in our ancestors now to be of support to ourselves and to one another, and to give them space to speak through us on behalf of them, the wisdom that they would like to share with us at this time, as our earth is going through such great transformation, and humanity too, on its ascension path. We are all together as one as we step in to this vessel now. Thank you all for being here. If you'd like to add something, Mary and Sarah, please do.
Thank you, Laura, for opening out that space for the ancestors to speak. My sense is that at the moment, it's quite hard for them to be heard. And by allowing that, this vessel and vehicle, this throat space to be opened, it allows that voice to begin to be heard.
Yes, more and more, more and more, trusting the wisdom of the ancestors. Yeah.
And there's such a great wisdom to be shared, and that we need more now, probably than ever before. And my feeling is that it's not easy for that wisdom, in fact, all of those gifts, to be able to flow down to us, the current generation, because there's various layers of wounding and trauma embedded in the field, which makes that flow difficult. Is that your experience with the work that you're doing?
This is such an interesting conversation, isn't it? To delve into what do we mean by the wisdom of our ancestors? What does that feel like to drop in and trust that? And where in our lives do we honor that? You know, where do we trust that? Because, you know, in the older societies, the elders are, you know, a very revered aspect of our culture. And so it was that honoring of their wisdom was part of who we were. And because that is, to all intents and purposes, being diminished, there's a void there. There's a space, and we need that. We kind of feel odd without that wisdom to go to. Go to the elder. They can help us with their overview. They're so good at the overview, and to step back and to not be in the mire of the fine detail, to see the bigger picture. And within the qigong that I shared, one of, and probably other practices that you all do, there's this presence of being in the back of you, being the witness bearer. And to me, that's dropping in also into that awareness of the support of the ancestral energy. Yeah, does that make sense?
I just wanted to pick up, Clara. That's incredible, and I just wanted to pick up on what you said about the in our culture, the older people kind of being put to the back, and not revered in the way of indigenous cultures. And I did a family constellation a while ago, and it was for these times. It was more than a family constellation. It was a constellation to help shift, the experience of what we're going through as a collective at the moment. And we all represented different archetypes. And I was like the grandmother energy. And I was feeling very uncomfortable. I was feeling very weak in my legs in this constellation. And I got moved into the center, as at one part, as that kind of veering, and that made things feel better. But actually, what happened in this constellation, and it feels really important to mention it, is at the end of the constellation, we weren't placed in the usual way of, grandmother, mother, child, standing. We were all in the circle, and we had different archetypes. We had the coyote energy to kind of mix everything up, and we had all kinds of really interesting, beautiful archetypes in there, and we all were held in a circle. And what that represented for me was this shift that we're going through at the moment of moving out of that linear to us all standing together and acknowledging. So we're standing with our ancestors in the circle as well. And it's really about that bringing in, that acknowledging, what wisdom is coming through, so that we can all kind of become multidimensional beings, actually. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were saying that, I could feel that, with the wisdom that they learn through when they're incarnated on the planet, if that's not passed on, but I got stuff to share and learn. There's an automatic sort of, or there used to be, maybe, in the old cultures and in the indigenous cultures, that the wisdom is passed on, often through story and sound and music. And there's a quality, it's a feeling. It's not just the words and the stories, it's the feeling, isn't it, of substance, that we are here on behalf of our ancestors, and we're here also to pave the way for our descendants. We are the ancestors of tomorrow, aren't we? So what can we do while we're here to connect with that truth line? I'm going to say back, but I also love that idea of like around a circle too. We're all around the sacred fire of life, in multidimensional zone. Okay, we have the baton of physicality right now, but there's also this quality of our ancestors within us already, through the DNA, but also through the energetics. Because I've got particular ancestors that I connect in with, so I'm sure you do as well. It's not all of them. There are some that were tricky characters, and you send them love and stuff. But when we got, so that's actually a question I'd love to ask Mary about that. When we're talking about the ancestors en masse, do we mean all of them, or just the ones that we vibe with? What do you think?
From what I can gather, the most recent ancestral generations, grandparents, great grandparents, they're the ones who are the most active and the most ready with immediate information. Right. Then there's another tranche a few generations back who often have extraordinary experiences and gifts, but there's often difficulty in passing that down. But if you can get really beyond that, then you get to an ancestral layer whereby they were very much more connected to the earth, much more connected to all of that wisdom that you're talking about. There's much less trauma, because often there wasn't even trauma at death, because death, even if it was violent and difficult, it wasn't as if people were dying already laden and loaded with unexpressed griefs and fears and pains and difficulties. But I think the process was much more rapid. So that part of our ancestry is such a rich seam of knowledge and connection, and it's really what we need now. But to be able to connect to that, you go back quite a long way. But as you're saying, time and space are not in that dimensional field. We're not looking at this in a linear way. We're looking at this in a far more holistic way. So they're there right now, this moment, as we speak, having a slight struggle to get through. But I know this is going to be a very slight aside, but I'm quite interested at the minute in this understanding of migration, because migration is going to be an enormous factor shortly. It's already starting right now. Ecological migrants, with each degree of warming on the planet, a billion people are going to have to move and leave land, leave territories. And that means a lot. You're leaving your motherland, you're leaving all of those sites of ritual. Now, that part of our ancestry, that very early part of our ancestry, migration was incredibly important to them. And in fact, in a way, some of the migrations that they did created the human traits that we have now. And I think there's a gift there waiting for us to connect to, because that part of our ancestry knows exactly what's going to happen to us. And if, as Sarah says, we can work as a whole, humanity as a whole, these enforced migrations might flow more easily. It's going to be difficult for everybody, but if we can connect to that extraordinary early experience, which, as you've just said, is written into our DNA and into our epigenetic coding. And I think we do also have some of the surviving fragments of stories and myths. But if we can really waken that up, as you did just now, with your little ceremony, your beautiful ceremony.
So beautiful, Mary. Can I just sort of, give my take on the same thing, really? Because my understanding is that with the epigenetics, a lot of the information that we tend to get through that informs our DNA seems to be like 3 to 5 generations back. That's the common. It often skips the first couple and usually goes 3 to 5. And so if we look at 3 to 5 generations back, what we've got is a lot of war, a lot of trauma, like you said. And what's actually happening, particularly in the last 3 years, is that trauma is being activated. And that's why so many people have been having such difficult time, kind of dark night of the soul, because, we've had pandemics, we've had wars, and, that have really impacted, life-changing sort of stuff, being locked down. So anything that's sitting there, you know, in those levels is being activated and stirred up. But what we have to remember is that, you know, the work that I do working with epigenetics, you know, if someone's got a thyroid issue, for example, it's like, why would we want to tune into great Auntie Doris who had thyroid issues when we can go right back, you know, many generations, or to someone who had the natural function of the thyroid that's completely healthy? We want to connect with that ancestor. So it's that kind of, you know, recalibrating. And really at this time, one of the things that's happening also is we are able to activate all these old codes, all these old memories. The ancestors are wanting to bring these through, you know, so it's an incredible journey that we're all on at this time.
Yeah, Sarah, that is so interesting about the epigenetics of it all. Thank you for that, because it's like brings in another level of, so we, in order to heal ourselves, we look back through the generations at that natural way of healing that occurred, you know, before Big Pharma. I mean, back in the day, we were talking natural remedies. And yes, the other thing that I was going to pick up from what Mary said was that our ancestors back in the day, 3, 4, 5 generations before, they didn't live as long as we are now. You know, that whole like middle age piece, you were lucky to get to middle age. So there's that bit as well. So there's that, there's the word youthful or vitality wants to come through about this essence, this primordial essence of being that is referred to as the ancestral chi, the ancestral life force. Is like, you know, when we can nurture that well within us, that's like part of that's our life force healing health baton that's coming through our physicality and our energetics. So what are we inheriting from our past line, and what are we picking up from the nurture and the elements that are actually here now? Because this is such a big topic, isn't it, ladies?
It really is.
Of course, I can feel the earth and all the elements going
too.
ancestors. Yes,
I can feel a part 2 coming on for sure, Clara.
Yeah, it's big, isn't it? But that idea of how do they want to speak through us? You know, it's that, how do you, okay, maybe it's about nurturing, nourishing the trust within you that you do know the right choices to make. You do know what to do, what your purpose is. You need to kind of get rid of all the distractions, come into, okay, there's a huge trauma processing piece going on, as you were mentioning, which is massive. Holding each other through that in the community of like, nobody's got it sorted out completely on their own. Doesn't happen like that. We are nurturing our new communities. We're holding each other. And that, I think, is really, really key right now with, as you say, with the migrations. You know, human nature generally wants to help. If you've got people that are displaced, regular folk will go, come and have a meal, or I've got a couch. You know, I feel that to be a human trait, a human truth. And that when we drop into the trust of our inner knowledge, that's linked back to the wisdom of our ancestors, surely, because there's a real depth to that. It's like, how come I just know stuff? It's obviously a combination, but it feels like to dropping back into that, trusting your, actually it was my grandma was called Doris, so it's interesting you use her, Auntie Doris. You can call her Auntie Doris if you want, but you know, to feel that support behind you, holding you, breathe into your heart and their heart space and go, guide me, lead me here. I value your wisdom here. I need you right now. And they want to help.
That's the absolute bottom line, that they really do want to help. But the nature of trauma is that we respond to trauma through fracturing, isolating, separating, dissociating, which in the moment is a very, very good strategy, because in the moment of trauma, that's the wisest and most intelligent thing to do. But then what you're supposed to do is, when you're more resourced and when you're with other people, you hold that trauma in such a way that it can be integrated and ultimately become embedded wisdom. But what we're facing at the moment is an overwhelm of trauma, and what we do in response to it, because you get to another moment, as Sarah says, of repeating trauma. It's just going to keep on and on and on repeating until we've held it. So what we're unfortunately doing is, in the face of another wave of trauma, we separate, we fracture, we freeze. We've all of those autonomic patterns: flight, fight, freeze. So we don't take the step that you were just mentioning of, how can we hold this? How can we come together with this? How can we, instead of moving apart in isolation and fracturing, how do we come together in a unified way, which is where the healing and the wisdom is going to arise. So we're at an absolute crossroads at the moment. And I think that's why, as you said, you can feel it opening out into this enormous field, because that is the field at the moment. We are at the crossroads. How do we work with this in the face of colossal trauma? How do we respond with tending, with befriending, with joining?
I'd love to speak. Sorry, Mary. Sorry, I thought you finished.
Oh, I'm delighted.
I'd love to speak to that from a tree point of view, because I know Clara will connect in with that, and it's speaking to her what she was saying earlier as well. Because from a tree point of view, how do we kind of reclaim that connection with the ancestors in a way? How we work with that is through our working with our kidney energy, which from a Chinese medicine and chi point of view, it's located in the kidney energy. And what can happen, to speak to what you were talking about, Mary, with the kidney energy, is it can tend to store fear. It can tend to store trauma. It's a contractive energy in its nature, so it contracts inwards. So how do we make that shift to open up, into that, into the ovaries, into that spiraling, in that ancestral spiraling of connection? And for me, one of the keys is through the connection with Mother Earth, because the kidney meridian has its starting point in the soles of the feet. And if we can open up that connection through the kidney 1 points and draw in that beautiful, nourishing, nurturing energy up through the kidney meridian, up into the lower spine, into the nervous system is also connected in with this energy, it starts to shift that trauma. We start to feel grounded, we start to feel connected. And this is a really, really important work. So just being in nature can help with that. But when we can do that collectively and work to kind of find our roots again, that is very, very powerful work. And I just wanted to kind of mention that Mary and I, we worked together for a few years, and we were doing kind of sessions with people, and we were really called to do this ancestral work together. And the reason we were really called was because of this trauma, but also because of grief that's happening in the collective at this time. It's almost been like a grieving process, with this, with the lockdown, people had to let go of so much of their life as they knew it. And how do we shift the lung energy? By breathing, so coming back to the chi again. So that breathing in the new potential, breathing in the new possibilities, the connection with earth, the breathing, that then starts to invite in our ancestral connection.
I can absolutely feel that working right now, can't you?
It's really,
the ancestors
inspired.
Being breathed. Yeah.
Use your energy wisely. That's what they say. Use it wisely. Not only respecting it, but using these meridian lines, using the energetic qualities of the organs. The system wants to harmonize. Your system wants to balance. All of this wants to balance. Nature is the great balancer. Every single one of your cells is wanting to balance. So when we can clear out the residues of stress, tension, anxiety, fear, worry, and other traumas, then we create space to be able for balance to do its magic. And as Sarah so wisely has brought in and introduced, the kidney energy is so fundamental to our all over energy. It's the Jing essence. It's the primal life force that it comes through the water. And I really love this connection that the earth and water have. Not just about to make mud pies or anything, but we often talk about the earth, an absolute total honor of great grandmother earth. But without the water, the earth would be a dust ball in space. And what are we? All of our cells are like made up of primarily of water, and water has a memory, and we could go off down that for quite some time too. And so it's unraveling this wisdom that's already within us, that our system wants to release the old, it wants to release the trauma, but if it's locked in, how does it do that? So we find these ways, and our chi practice is so key. It has helped so many of us to do simple things like just shaking the body, shaking your tail feathers, that really gets into your kidneys as well, and give permission for the natural flow of the old to travel down. It tends to travel down the bladder meridian, which is the back of you, and that is like standing in a waterfall, kind of that feeling of being cleansed, not just physically but energetically. The negative ions come in, and then this sluicing down, as we often will drop grounding cords in and roots, and those act not only to help stabilize us and place us in deeper connection with the Great Mother, but also as a conduit for the old stagnations, toxins, debris to actually go down deep into the Great Mother for transformation, which is one of her amazing qualities. And it's often this piece is missing or needs to be reminded of. It's the letting go first, clearing first to create the space, so that then the new fresh energy the earth wants to give you through your bubble in spring, which is a wonderful name for that kidney 1 point, isn't it? That you receive that up the inside of the leg, so up the kidney channels. It's a natural flow that wants to happen, and even just presencing it here, it's like, oh, hello. Like, and just placing your hands, crossed hands on your lower belly, as a physical kind of, this is my reservoir place. This is where all this fresh new energy can come in. And of course, there's a lot more that I cannot wait for Sarah and I to get into a right good discussion about all of this stuff.
No, it's fabulous. And maybe with Mary again, because it feels like there could well be a second part to this as well.
Yeah, but just I'd love to all the stuff that's coming through about the chi as well. But you've had a different training to me, so it's like, woo, what's coming through? And of course,
and I love the shaking. When you bring in the shaking, because that's what wild animals do.
Yes, exactly.
When they have
it's
trauma,
natural.
when the trauma's finished, they shake and they clear it all out, and we just forget that piece, and it's so important, the shaking.
It really is, and it's a natural thing. I don't know about you, but when you're sharing these teachings with others, when it comes to shaking, often to begin with, people feel very like, like, oh, I don't know, I don't really want to do that. It feels a bit weird. And it's that whole thing about embodying your system, listening to what your body wants and not caring what other people think. I'm not suggesting you should go and shake in the middle of a supermarket, but certainly folk have said to me that they often, when they're boiling a kettle, they'll bring on a little shake, or they'll shake something. It's a natural thing, isn't it? And remembering this is part of our repertoire. It's simple, it's easy, and it drops us into the present moment, so that we can be clearer for that deep breath and know this is a piece of magic that nestled into your lungs, at the base of your lungs, about a third of the body of your kidneys is in there. So when you breathe into your lungs and you soften your belly, you breathe into the back of your lungs, you connect with your kidneys through your breath. And I just love that practice. It's such a centering, deep, nurturing breath, play. But anyway, that's me going on about the chi stuff a bit. So
To hear it. It's fabulous to hear it. Thank you.
you're welcome. But I also like to bring.
I have to just add, I had images
Yeah.
of doing a shake, us doing a shake together in the supermarket in Portugal when
Yeah,
we
we can do it together. You can do it together. But I also, with the shake, I want to bring in this sound piece that Mary so wisely brought up. You know, how can we be the sound, the voice of our ancestors? What do they want to speak through us? What sounds do they want to make? How can you activate your throat chakra? How can you, tapping on the thymus, doing some basic vocal sounds, doing even, we've got the healing sounds and the on presence, but that, sort of people say, oh, when I hear myself recorded, I don't like the sound of my own voice. It's like, stop that now. Stop that now. It's almost, how dare you? Your ancestors no longer have a physical voice like you do. If you want to speak, be grounded and then into your heart, and let your heart wisdom speak through you. And then you know that you've got the support of them. So this activation of the throat chakra is huge. And as you know, that connection between Dante and sacral chakra and the throat, that's a big processing plant, isn't it? That's a real
It's the sacral
highway.
chakra. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's no, anyway, that's another whole topic. So I was going to ask Mary about this. How do you feel we can help activate the voice of our ancestors through us?
That's such a good question, Clara. I was just tuning into that actually as you were talking about it, because as the three of us have been talking, that almost cutthroat feeling that we could resonate with when we began has already started to heal somewhat, hasn't it? There's more resource here. However, my sense is that at the minute, what wants to come through is not even words.
Yeah.
It's a sound. There's two sounds. There's one for me, what I'm picking up is the groaning of childbirth and the cry of an infant. So at the minute, it's not about words. And I think it's resonating with the grief that you're talking about and how grief causes us to fall to the floor. There's something about that for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was what I felt, Mary, when I tuned into the ancestors in the very start. I felt the grief. I know you. I almost said you felt the throat, and I felt the held grief, because I feel that they're wanting to help, but there's only so much. We need to give permission. We need to engage.
Ask them.
So,
yeah, I'm glad. I love working with Sarah.
And I love working with you.
We're nearly always in accord like that. And, I really love it that the information comes from two different pathways, but there's a harmony to it. It's like two different notes, but when they reach each other, there's a real harmony.
It's beautiful.
It's been beautiful. We've been working together for a few years now, and there's just a beautiful unfolding that happens. And we run an ancestral class. We ran an ancestral class for a year, and we had a little pause, and we're going to start again in November. So we will put the link for that underneath the video, but also we're doing a free event in October, which is super exciting. So if anyone wants to sort of dip their toes in a little bit more, then do come and join us on the free event on the 10th of October. I hope that you'll come and join us as well, Clara, if you have time. It's in the evening on the 10th of October, 7:30.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. And it's so lovely to meet you, Mary, as well, because Sarah's told me about you, and I've been very curious about the work that's coming through you both. So I feel like a little bit of an interloper here, but I'm also very grateful to be included in this circle for this discussion. So thank you for inviting me.
It's been so beautiful and it's felt very natural. What's been really beautiful about this is it's like the kind of circle that Mary and I held. It's just naturally opened, and it's felt very much like you're totally on the same page with us as well, which has been incredible.
Bless you, bless you. I tell you what, anything you want to add, Mary, before we close?
No, I'm just enjoying the idea that, will you do another heart bowl to close it?
I'm going to do the throat chakra bowl to close.
Perfect.
So, and I'm going to invite us all to make a sound with it as well, maybe a gentle humming or just something to activate your throat chakra in a way. So thank you so much for listening and watching. Clara Apollo here, Sarah Chave there, Mary Bolingbroke there. Thank you. Chi sisters, and thanks to all our ancestors and to all of you and all of yours. So taking a deep breath in. Thank you.
Thank you. Final sound.
Yes.
Final sounds of laughter. It's always nice.
Keeping it real.